Hey y'all, Bonnie Roden here, your favorite family law attorney. I work with Roden Law Group and we're based in East Central Florida, think Cocoa Beach area. Today we're tackling some a little bit more complex and evolving aspects of the division of property during divorce. Equitable distribution issues can significantly impact your financial future, especially in modern marriages where you have entrepreneurship, military benefits, digital assets, etc. So we're going to cover 5 things in this video. We're going to cover handling debt related to your spouse's business, special rules for military divorce, dividing digital assets and cryptocurrency, jointly owned intellectual property, and how a new spouse's income could influence the outcome of a case. So let's take a look, starting with debt from a spouse's business. If your spouse owns a business and you're coming into a divorce, the debts that are tied to that business can become a major issue. Florida law considers whether marital funds or efforts contributed to the business, and if so, the business and its debts might be subject to equitable distribution. This means you could be partially responsible for loans, lines of credit, vendor contracts, even if you weren't involved in running the business. Typically, this is all included as part of the valuation of a business, but it is something you need to keep in mind. It's crucial to gather records showing how and when the debt was incurred and whether it benefited the marriage. Don't assume that the business debt just stays with the business owning spouse. It usually does, but not always, and there is an impact on the non-business owning spouse. All right, military divorces add unique layers to property division. In Florida, military pensions are divisible marital assets. But there are other laws that come into play, like the federal law known as the Uniformed Services Former Spouses Protection Act. That's a doozy. It's a big, long acronym. So what you need to consider when it comes to equitable distribution with military assets, you need to know the 10-10 rule, the 15-15, the 20-20 rule. But the 10-10 rule is if you were married for at least 10 years, overlapping 10 years of the military active service, then DFAS, which is the payment arm of the military, DFAS may pay your share of the pension directly to you. VA disability benefits are not divisible, but they do come into play with other financial considerations like alimony and also child support. So disability payments are considered income for the purposes of calculating spousal support and child support. Also, military housing and active duty allowances, other types of benefits, those also can and do affect spousal support and child support calculations. So it's really important when you're working on a military divorce that you work with an attorney that's familiar with both federal and Florida law. So keep that in mind. All right, let's touch on digital assets and cryptocurrency. Digital assets, super common these days in divorce. Crypto wallets, NFTs, online businesses, social media monetization accounts, even social media accounts that don't have any actual value, as well as photographs, emails, and other digital information. So anything that is stored digitally, that can be dealt with and should be dealt with if you have these things during your divorce, and it should go into your marital settlement agreement. So cryptocurrency, that one in particular, is difficult to track because it's decentralized, and that's the attraction of it. But if it was acquired during the marriage, it's a marital asset and it should be disclosed. A forensic accountant can help trace the ownership of digital assets and provide valuation. The courts are slowly catching up to this technology, but it is important for the attorney to push for proper disclosure of documents. So if you know about these things, you can ask the other side for them. So make sure to tell your attorney if you think that there are digital assets of some sort. All right, just a quickie on jointly owned intellectual property. Some people have these types of assets. It isn't common, but Examples would be patents, trademarks, books, software that was created during the marriage can be considered assets, and especially so if both spouses contributed to it. So there is a case out there that talks about a book that was written during the marriage and it was never published, and then it was published after the marriage, and the husband had been awarded a portion of that work, and the wife who wrote the book had to pay a portion of the proceeds of that asset to the husband because that was included in their marital settlement agreement. So typically these types of assets, the intellectual property assets, they're valued based on projected income and marketability. The court can divide royalties, assign ownership. They can also require one spouse to buy out the other, at least on paper. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. If that is a portion of your divorce, it is a unique type of asset, but it's important to remember that is still an asset. Let's talk a little bit about when we have income from a new spouse or a paramour. So maybe not a spouse, but a paramour, because if you're still married, you can't get remarried. So in Florida, equitable distribution focuses only on the spouses that are involved in the divorce. A new partner's income is not subject to division, but it may affect certain aspects indirectly. For example, if a new spouse contributes or covers any of the housing expenses, the court might find that the party who that spouse is with has more disposable income and doesn't need as much in property or support. However, courts generally don't penalize someone just because they've moved on. The focus remains on a fair split based on the actual marital estate. All right, so that's everything for video number 6 in our series of, I believe it's going to be 10 on equitable distribution. If you're navigating a divorce that has these unique issues in it, talk to an experienced attorney. If you're in our area, we're here to help. Be sure to like and follow so that you'll be notified when we have new content. Otherwise, bye y'all.